Count Ioannis Antonios Kapodistrias, sometimes anglicized as John Capodistrias, was a Greek foreign minister of the Russian Empire and one of the most distinguished politicians and diplomats of Europe. After a long career in European politics and diplomacy, he was elected as the first head of state of independent Greece, and he is considered as the founder of the modern Greek state, and the founder of Greek independence. Background and early career. Ioannis Kapodistrias was born in Corfu, the main of the Ionian Islands, to a distinguished Corfiot family. Kapodistrias's father was the nobleman, artist and politician Antonios Maria Kapodistrias. An ancestor of Kapodistrias's had been created a conte by Charles Emmanuel II, Duke of Savoy, and the title was later inscribed in the Libro d'Oro of the Corfu nobility. The title originates from the city of Capodistria in Istria, then part of the Republic of Venice and the place of origin of Kapodistrias's paternal family before they moved to Corfu in the 13th century, where they changed their religion from Catholic to Orthodox and became Hellenized. His family's name in Capodistria was Vittoria Vittori. His mother was Adamantine Gonemis Gamma Omicron Nu Epsilon Mu Eta Diamantina Gonemi, a countess, and daughter of the noble Christodoulus Gonemis. The Gonemis were a Greek family originally from the island of Cyprus. They had migrated to Crete when Cyprus fell to the Ottomans in the 16th century. They then migrated to Epirus when Crete fell in the 17th century, finally settling on the Ionian island of Corfu. The Gonemis family, like the Kapodistrias, had been listed in the Libro d'Oro of Corfu. Kapodistrias, though born and raised as a nobleman, was throughout his life a liberal thinker and had democratic ideals. His ancestors fought along with the Venetians during the Turkish sieges of Corfu and had received a title of nobility from them. Kapodistrias studied medicine, philosophy and law at the University of Padua in 1795–97. When he was 21 years old, in 1797, he started his medical practice as a doctor in his native island of Corfu. In 1799, when Corfu was briefly occupied by the forces of Russia and Turkey, Kapodistrias was appointed chief medical director of the military hospital. In 1802 he founded an important scientific and social progress organization in Corfu, the National Medical Association, of which he was an energetic member. Minister of the Septinsular Republic. After 2 years of revolutionary freedom triggered by the French Revolution and the ascendancy of Napoleon, in 1799 Russia and the Ottoman Empire drove the French out of the 7 Ionian Islands and organized them as a free and independent state, the Septinsular Republic, ruled by its nobles. Kapodistrias, substituting for his father, became one of 2 ministers of the new state. Thus, at the age of 25, Kapodistrias became involved in politics. In Cephalonia he was successful in convincing the populace to remain united and disciplined to avoid foreign intervention, and, by his argument and sheer courage, he faced and appeased rebellious opposition without conflict. With the same peaceful determination he established authority in all the 7 islands. When Russia sent an envoy, Count George Mosenigard, a noble from Zakynthos who had served as Russian diplomat in Italy, Kapodistrias became his protégé. Mosenigard later helped Kapodistrias to join the Russian diplomatic service. When elections were carried for a new Senate, Kapodistrias was unanimously appointed as Chief Minister of State. In December 1803, a less feudal and more liberal and democratic constitution was voted by the Senate. As Minister of State, he organized the public sector, putting particular emphasis on education. In 1807 the French reoccupied the islands and dissolved the Septinsular Republic. Russian diplomatic service. In 1809, Kapodistrias entered the services of Alexander I of Russia. His first important mission, in November 1813, was as unofficial Russian ambassador to Switzerland, with the task of helping disentangle the country from the French dominance imposed by Napoleon. He secured Swiss unity, independence and neutrality, which were formally guaranteed by the Great Powers, and actively facilitated the initiation of new federal constitution for the 19 cantons that were the component states of Switzerland, with personal drafts. In the ensuing Congress of Vienna 1815, as the Russian minister, he counterbalanced the paramount influence of the Austrian minister, Prince Metternich, and insisted on French state unity under a Bourbon monarch. He also obtained new international guarantees for the constitution and neutrality of Switzerland through an agreement among the powers. After these brilliant diplomatic successes, Alexander I appointed Kapodistrias joint Foreign Minister of Russia. In the course of his assignment as Foreign Minister of Russia, Kapodistrias's ideas came to represent a progressive alternative to Metternich's aims of Austrian domination of European affairs. Kapodistrias's liberal ideas of a new European order so threatened Metternich that he wrote in 1819, "Kapodistrias is not a bad man, but honestly speaking he is a complete and thorough fool, a perfect miracle of wrong-headedness. He lives in a world to which our minds are often transported by a bad nightmare." Metternich then tried to undermine Kapodistrias's position in the Russian court because he realized that Kapodistrias's progressive vision was antithetical to his own. Although Metternich was not a decisive factor in Kapodistrias's leaving his post as Russian foreign minister, he nevertheless attempted to actively undermine Kapodistrias by rumors and innuendo. According to the French ambassador to St. Petersburg, Metternich was a master of insinuation and he attempted to neutralize Kapodistrias because he viewed him as the only man capable of counterbalancing Metternich's own influence on the Russian court. More than anyone else, he possesses the art of devaluing opinions that are not his own. The most honorable life, the purest intentions are not sheltered from his insinuations. It is thus with profound ingenuity that he knew how to neutralize the influence of Count Kapodistrias, the only one who could counterbalance his own Metternich by default. Succeeded in the short term, since Kapodistrias eventually left the Russian court on his own. But with time, Kapodistrias's ideas and policies for a new European order prevail. He was always keenly interested in the cause of his native country, and in particular the state of affairs in the Seven Islands, which in a few decades' time had passed from French revolutionary influence to Russian protection and then British rule. He always tried to attract his emperor's attention to matters Greek. Kapodistrias visited his Ionian homeland, by then under British rule, in 1818, and in 1819 he went to London to discuss the islanders' grievances with the British government, but the British gave him the cold shoulder partly because of the fact that, uncharacteristically, he refused to show them the memorandum he wrote to the Tsar about the subject. Kapodistrias became increasingly active in support of Greek independence from the Ottoman Empire, but did not succeed in obtaining Alexander's support for the Greek Revolution of 1821. This put Kapodistrias in an untenable situation, and in 1822, he took an extended leave of absence from his position as foreign minister and retired to Geneva, where he applied himself to supporting the Greek Revolution by organizing material and moral support. Returned to Greece, Kapodistrias moved to Geneva, where he was greatly esteemed, having been made an honorary citizen for his past services to Swiss unity and particularly to the cantons. In 1827, he learned that the newly formed Greek National Assembly had, as he was the most illustrious Greek-born politician in Europe, elected him as the first head of state of newly liberated Greece, with the title of Kyriates. After touring Europe to rally support for the Greek cause, Kapodistrias landed in Napion on the 7th of January 1828, and arrived in Aegina on the 8th of January 1828. It was the first time he had ever set foot on the Greek mainland, and he found a discouraging situation there. Even while fighting against the Ottomans continued, factional and dynastic conflicts had led to 2 civil wars which ravaged the country. Greece was bankrupt and the Greeks were unable to form a united national government. For the first capital of Greece, Napion, he ushered a new era in the country, which had just been liberated from a 400-year Turkish occupation. He founded schools, established foundations for young women to work, and inaugurated the first university. These institutes educated the first teachers of a liberated Greece. Administration. Upon his arrival, Kapodistrias launched a major reform and modernization program that covered all areas. He re-established military unity, bringing an end to the second phase of the civil war, reorganized the military, which was then able to reconquer territory lost to the Ottoman military during the civil wars, introduced the first modern quarantine system in Greece, which brought epidemics like typhoid fever, cholera and dysentery under control for the first time since the start of the War of Independence, negotiated with the great powers and the Ottoman Empire at the borders and the degree of independence of the Greek state, and signed the peace treaty that ended the War of Independence with the Ottomans, introduced the phoenix, the first modern Greek currency, organized local administration, and, in an effort to raise the living standards of the population, introduced the cultivation of the potato into Greece. According to legend, although Kapodistrias ordered that potatoes be handed out to anyone interested, the population was reluctant at first to take advantage of the offer. The legend continues that he then ordered that the whole shipment of potatoes be unloaded on public display on the docks of Napion, and placed it under guard to make the people believe that they were valuable. Soon, people would gather to look at the guarded potatoes, and some started to steal them. The guards had been ordered in advance to turn a blind eye to such behavior, and soon the potatoes had all been stolen, and Kapodistrias's plan to introduce them to Greece had succeeded. Furthermore, as part of his program, he tried to undermine the authority of the traditional clans or dynasties, which he considered the useless legacy of a bygone and obsolete era. However, he underestimated the political and military strength of the Kapitane, who had led the revolt against the Ottoman Turks in 1821, and who had expected a leadership role in the post-revolution government. When a dispute between the Kapitane of Laconia and the appointed governor of the province escalated into an armed conflict, he called in Russian troops to restore order, because much of the army was controlled by Kapitane, who were part of the rebellion, Hydriot Rebellion, and the Battle of Poros. George Finley's 1861 History of Greek Revolution records that by 1831 Kapodistrias's government had become hated, chiefly by the independent Maniates, but also by the Romeliates and the rich and influential merchant families of Hydra, Spetses and Sara. The Hydriots customs dues were the chief source of the municipality's revenue, so they refused to hand these over to Kapodistrias. It appears that Kapodistrias had refused to convene the National Assembly and was ruling as a despot, possibly influenced by his Russian experiences. The municipality of Hydra instructed Admiral Miaoulis and Mavrocordatos to go to Poros and to seize the Hellenic Navy's fleet there. This Miaoulis did, the intention being to prevent a blockade side of the islands, so for a time it seemed as if the National Assembly would be called. Kapodistrias called on the British and French residents to support him in putting down the rebellion, but this they refused to do. But the Russian admiral Pyotr Ivanovich Rykord took his ships north to Poros. Colonel Kalagis took a half-trained force of Greek army regulars and a force of irregulars in support. With less than 200 men, Ioannis was unable to make much of a fight. Fort Hajduk on Burtsi Island was overrun by the regulars and the corvette Spetses sunk by Rykord's force. Encircled by the Russians in the harbor and Kalagis's force on land, Poros surrendered. Ioannis was forced to set charges in the flagship Hellas and the corvette Hydra, blowing them up when he and his handful of followers returned to Hydra. Kalagis's men were enraged by the loss of the ships and sacked Poros, carrying off plunder to Napoleon. The loss of the best ships in the fleet crippled the Hellenic navy for many years, but it also weakened Kapodistrias's position. He did finally call the National Assembly, but his other actions triggered more opposition and this led to his downfall. Assassination. In 1831, Kapodistrias ordered the imprisonment of Petrobi Mavromichalis, the Bay of the Mani Peninsula, one of the wildest and most rebellious parts of Greece. This was a mortal offense to the Mavromichalis family, and on October 9, 1831, Kapodistrias was assassinated by Petrobi's brother Constantis and son Georgios on the steps of the Church of St. Spyridon in Napion. Kapodistrias woke up early in the morning and decided to go to church, although his servants and bodyguards urged him to stay at home. When he reached the church, he saw his assassins waiting for him. When he reached the church steps, Constantis and Georgios came close as if to greet him. Suddenly Constantis drew his pistol and fired, missing, the bullet sticking in the church wall where it is still visible today. He then drew his dagger and stabbed Kapodistrias in the stomach while Georgios shot Kapodistrias in the head. Constantis was shot by General Photomaris, who watched the murder scene from his own window. Georgios managed to escape and hide in the French embassy. After a few days he surrendered to the Greek authorities. He was sentenced to death by court-martial and was executed by firing squad. His last wish was that the firing squad not shoot his face, and his last words were, "Peace, brothers." Ioannis Kapodistrias was succeeded as governor by his younger brother, Augustinos Kapodistrias. Augustinos ruled only for 6 months, during which the country was very much plunged into chaos. Subsequently, King Otto was given the throne of the newly founded Kingdom of Greece. Legacy and honors. Kapodistrias is greatly honored in Greece today. In 1944, Nikos Kazantzakis wrote the play Kapodistria in his honor. It is a tragedy in 3 acts and was performed at the Greek National Theatre in 1946 to celebrate the anniversary of the 25th of March. The University of Athens is named Kapodistrian in his honor. The Greek euro coin of 20 lepta bears his face, as did the obverse of the 500 drachmas banknote of 1983 to 2001, before the introduction of the euro, and a local reorganization program that reduced the number of municipalities in the late 1990s also carries his name. The fears that Britain, France and Russia had of any liberal and republican movement at the time, because of the reign of terror in the French Revolution, led them to insist on Greece becoming a monarchy after Kapodistrias's death. His summer home in Koukou-Ouritsa, Corfu, has been converted to a museum commemorating his life and accomplishments and has been named Kapodistrias Museum in his honor. It was donated by his late grandniece Maria di Sola Kapodistria to 3 cultural societies in Corfu specifically for the aforementioned purposes. On the 8th of December 2001 in the city Kapodistria of Slovenia, a life-size statue of Ioannis Kapodistrias was unveiled held in the central square of the municipality. The square was renamed after Kapodistrias, since Koper was the place of Kapodistrias' ancestors before they moved to Corfu in the 14th century. The statue was created by Greek sculptor K. Palaiologos and was transported to Koper by a Greek naval vessel. The ceremony was attended by the Greek ambassador and Elenika Ukou, a Kapodistrias scholar and professor at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. In the area of bilateral relations between Greece and Slovenia, the Greek Minister for Development Dimitris Soufas met on the 24th of April 2007 with his counterpart Andrei Viziak, Economy Minister of Slovenia, and among other things he mentioned, Greece has a special sentimental reason for these relations with Slovenia, because the family of Ioannis Kapodistrias, the first governor of Greece, hails from Koper of Slovenia. And this is especially important for us. On the 24th of February 2007, the cities of Aegina, Napion, Corfu, Koper Kapodistria, and Famagusta created the Ioannis Kapodistrias Network, a network of municipalities which are associated with the late governor. The network aims to promote the life and vision of Ioannis Kapodistrias across borders. The presidency of the network is currently held by the Greek municipality of Napion. On the 21st of September 2009, the city of Lausanne in Switzerland inaugurated a bronze statue of Kapodistrias. The ceremony was attended by the foreign ministers of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, and of Switzerland, Michel and Kami Ray. On the 19th of June 2015, Prime Minister of Greece Alexis Tsipras, in the first of that day's activities, addressed Russians of Greek descent at a statue of Ioannis Kapodistrias in St. Petersburg.